Hello, hello! Today we are doing something different. This is the first video about what if. This concept is taking something and what if it was different? Or what if this thing actually existed in the game? What if this feature was different? And the first thing that we are taking on this concept is German Tier 8 aircraft carrier Graf Zeppelin. So, what is wrong about Graf Zeppelin? Basically everything. Okay, not basically everything, but she has some flaws. Mostly about her planes. You must be heard it by now, but Graf Zeppelin is mentioned as light cruiser. And people are not wrong, because it has just very bad planes. And very good secondaries. So, her planes. Let's start with attack aircraft. The attack aircraft on Graf Zeppelin is just bad. She has only 2 planes per attack, with 8 rockets at max. With the planes, that is very slow. Yeah, the rockets have high damage, but with the recent changes, you just spent so much time on attacking that the rockets, the enemy just maneuver away, and it's just very annoying, and then it makes the rockets useless. That's very bad part of the rockets of the Graf Zeppelin. Now to the torpedoes. Tier to tier, they are the worst. But considering the Graf Zeppelin's other planes, it isn't that bad. I mean, just look at the rockets and the dive bombers. You will easily see that torpedoes are at least work. Because the other two is just very RNG reliant, and torpedoes are just not. And I'm not saying the torpedoes on Graf Zeppelin is godlike, but at least they work. Because they work. Because they are torpedoes. They are like 100% does something. And in terms of the stats, they have the lowest float chance. And they have very slow speed with low damage. They are really the worst in the class. Now to dive bombers. The dive bombers on Graf Zeppelin is shortly bad with very inaccurate bombs that does no damage, at least right now. In the past, it was just better. Like, the dive bombers did 7k damage, and at least when you hit one, you felt like you did something, but now it is just 5.8k damage, and the bombs are very inaccurate. They didn't done anything after all those global nerfs, and the Graf Zeppelin is just bad. I'll be passing the secondaries, AA, maneuverability, and just continue with the concealment. Because the concealment on Graf Zeppelin is actually the worst in tier. Even worse than her sister ships. Eric Löwenhardt and August von Percival, as stock, has 13.5 km surface concealment. This is just better than Graf Zeppelin's stock of 16.2 concealment. And it's just weird. And it needs a change. I think these are all the things about the bad part of the Graf Zeppelin. So let's continue to the good part, where what are the changes? What are the changes that I'm just proposing? Like, what if these was happened? Let's start with the Graf Zeppelin's rocket planes, because they need a buff, and this buff will just make it better. So, rocket planes doesn't get a plane change. The planes are still Messerschmitt 155 A's, and these 155 A's gets a speed buff. Instead of the 136 knots of the Graf Zeppelin, of the current Graf Zeppelin, it gets a 167 knot speed. At maximum, I think it can go high as 210 or something. It will just make it easier to get in and attack any enemy ships. The second buff is the size of the attacking flight. Instead of 2, it will get increased to 3. And amount of planes in the squadron gets increased to the 9 instead of 8. This will be ensure you actually hit something with your rocket squadron, because you just spend so much time attacking or just getting in somewhere. You might just lose lot of planes, and when you attack, when you attack, your planes gets missed. They just miss. But with this change, your rockets have less chance of missing. Okay, let's move to the torpedo bombers. Torpedo bombers gets a bit of a change. Instead of using TA-152Cs, it will use GU-87D4 torpedo bombers, which designed for the Graf Zeppelin to replace her GU-87C as a torpedo bomber. You are now seeing it in the screen. This plane gets 1650 health points, gets speed of 156 knots, and it gets same torpedoes as current Graf Zeppelin. I can hear you. You are saying, but this is a nerf. It is more. You will understand why I'm nerfing this. Now, to the dive bomber, which is much more surprising. GU-87C dive bombers. These dive bombers also exist on Tier 6 German aircraft carrier Erich Leonard. And for short, it is actually the same dive bomber. It also uses high explosive bombs that do 12k damage. That does 12k damage. It has the same HP and it has the same speed. But size of the attacking flight is 3 instead of 2 on the Erich, and size of the squadron is 9 instead of 8. Or was it a 6? I think it was a 6. So you get a bigger squadron, but there is also one different thing as well. The reticle. Instead of very accurate circle reticle, Graf Zeppelin gets ellipse from the other tier 8 German carrier, which is the August von Percival. This will make sure that these bombs are not very powerful against DDs, but more of a powerful against cruisers and the battleships. But I think you can still use them against DDs, but don't expect a lot of hits, because you basically spent like 2 or 3 seconds while attacking, and when doing that attack you can actually that the enemy DD can actually angle. So take that, like make that in your mind. These are all the changes for the planes. Now to the last change, which is the concealment change. The concealment needs to be buffed. Like I said, it is weird that the same class of the ships has better concealment. Graf Zeppelin needs to be buffed to 13.5 km stock surface concealment. And then the air search also should be changed to 11.2 km concealment. I think this will be a nice buff, especially considering the Graf Zeppelin's secondaries, which is at the maximum. It is 9.5, with being very accurate. These are all the changes, but how we can compare these changes to Kaga, Lexington, Implacable, Formidable, not the Formidable, what was Indomitable, Saipan, Enterprise, like all other tier 8 carriers. First off, her attack aircraft will feel like American Tiny Tims. They already feel like that, but the planes are just very slow, and you don't have amount of planes that something like Lexington has. And with this change, it will just be more identical to Lexington, but it is a German one. In terms of torpedoes, I think it will be the worst one of the tier. You don't have amounts of torpedoes, and those torpedoes don't have amounts of damage, and the planes are also like tier 7. And then the dive bombers. The dive bombers will feel like HE version of the August von Percival. Can do huge damage to battleships and the cruisers, but much more inaccurate against the destroyers. And I think it will be in the middle of Kaga and Lexington. Has huge damage but less bombs. Like Lexington has 6 bombs, if I'm correct, and then Kaga has 4 bombs per drop. So if we continue towards the concealment versus other carriers, the Graf Zeppelin will become more similar to August von Percival, or say out the same as August von Percival, with the secondary build, which, if this type of a concealment buff comes in, I think secondaries on Graf Zeppelin will be 100% worth it, and I think it will bring back the fun for me, especially for the Graf Zeppelin. And it is just very competitive for the tier. I think these are all. Thanks for watching. I'll be making more videos, and I invite you to my Twitch channel as well. I'll be trying to live stream mostly. See you next time. Peace.